time to start. Park Commission, call to order January 2nd, 2020. First order of business is approval of minutes.
I'll approve the minutes with, let me see here, this is,
There's a few typos in
Is there?
here. Yeah,
this is
repeated.
in the 6 section, all of the A, B, C, D, E, F, G things, the title is redundant. I don't know if that's the system that puts this together for you or what.
Yeah, it is, and I can certainly change that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other than that, no changes for me.
Oh, I see.
Is there any other corrections, changes, deletions? Hearing none, all those.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Dave, okay.
Motion by David, second by who?
Well, actually, PC, Patrick.
I made the motion,
Motion, David corrected with those, a
Okay.
couple amendments there.
All right. All those in favor of the prior minutes with changes, signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carried. Item 3, public appearances for non-agenda items. And look at the two who appeared on the specific item.
On the agenda.
Yeah. Hearing none and seeing none, we'll move on. Item 4 is review and approval of agenda. Need a motion and a second.
I move that we approve the agenda. Excuse me.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second.
Susan?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carried. Okay, now we're at 5A, resolution, or 19919, community center. Oops, I'm on last meeting there. Excuse me.
When you could probably just read it right out the,
I know,
the-
yeah. It's easier for me to read this, actually.
There you go.
All right. Resolution R 20719, resolution authorizing 2020 to 2019 Night Springs Golf Course Management Contract.
And now, kind of a little bit of a background here. As you're aware, we do have a contract, or we did have a contract with Dan Larson, and Dan is here to answer any questions that you may have. The contract was originally going to go through 2020, but due to the financial situation there, Dan needed to have an adjustment. So we actually terminated the previous contract, and with that, we went out and bid it again. We actually had to bid it twice because the first bid that went out was a non-conforming bid because I requested 2-year contract proposals, and actually Dan submitted a 10-year contract proposal. He was the only one that submitted a proposal, but with that being non-conforming, we had to reject it and then rebid it again, which we did do. And actually Dan again was the only submitter of the proposal. And I did include in your information Dan's proposal, which is on page 11, which actually is a 10-year proposal, which actually will begin February 1 of 2020. With it being January now, Dan was kind enough to extend his existing contract for the month of January, so it would, in theory, begin February 1st, 2020, and run through December 31st of 2029, with $50,000 paid annually with monthly installments, and then for each new year, there would be a $1,000 increase in the contract. So at the conclusion in 2029, actually, it would be $60,000. But again, what this is it's basically a turnkey operation where Dan manages the golf course for the city. He pays all the bills, he hires all the staff, he maintains it. He, in turn, receives all the revenues and those kinds of things. But I would say that this is a pretty sound investment. The community is definitely interested in the golf course. And if we as a city were to run the golf course, we certainly couldn't do it for $50,000 annually. So that's a proposal before you. Dan is here. I know there was questions last time in regards to pieces of the contract where there could be amendments, and I did include in my agenda comments, there are a couple different pieces of the contract where it does allow for adjustments potentially. And one of them is the contract does allow for the change from a contracted service to a city-run service with the agreement from both parties. And then actually 2.3, notwithstanding anything to the contrary, in the event the city desires to redevelop the premise for a use other than a golf course, the city may may terminate the contract, but we would have to give about a 1.5 year notice.
What, one thing there, you said disc golf, you mean golf course, right?
Well,
Why
no.
don't you come up here, over here, and
Well,
pull
actually,
your seat off to the side if you want.
he has baskets out there, so it is a golf disc course.
It's a combination, isn't it?
Yep,
Yes.
it's a combination.
Yeah, I actually integrated a 9-hole disc golf course that goes along with the regular golf course.
Right. But, I mean, it's primarily a golf course with the ball and the clubs.
Yes,
Okay.
but
How about from revenues, what % of the revenues would come from each source?
golf. I mean, the disc golf, I did that the first year I took over. Disc golf is becoming very popular, and I figured that would kind of involve more of the community.
Sure.
It's kind of an all-around,
Sure.
all around
No, I just
sport.
wondered what %. Is it 10% of the players are disc golf and 90% it's,
Right now, I'd probably say about 5% of
so
disc
it's
golf.
quite small.
Because it's a 9-hole, I do have intentions on adding another 9. Yeah, making it a full 18-hole disc golf course, which will then spike the.
Where does the funding come from for that, to make it into, does the city pay for that?
No, that's me.
Out of the proceeds of revenue of the
Yes.
operation?
And what's kind of cool about the disc golf course is, because it is a year-round contract, where the Dane County, what they'll do is they'll close down
Mhm.
a lot of their disc golf courses during the winter. And Dan has really been interested in keeping the disc golf course open
Sure.
year-round. And certainly also, the idea of cross-country skiing and all of those kinds of things. We did try to do an ice skating rink one year, but it was a lot of work. But I think, and as next month we'll be talking about the hub, the Nine Springs Golf Course Hub study, and Dan has really been a willing participant in trying to do activities and things. And that was one of the charges of the council, that when we did it the last time, that they wanted it to be a full year, but it would be not solely, certainly golf is the anchor, but the facility could be used for other activities and things.
You keep the clubhouse open so people can come and play euchre?
If requested.
Well, and actually too, we did put an addition onto the clubhouse, and it is available for rent.
Mhm.
So we've had some rentals here and there, but one of the big users of the golf course is the First Tee program.
Oh, okay,
So
sure.
they do educational programs and computer programs in that room, and
Oh, good.
so it's really kind of expanded a lot
Yes.
with opportunities and things that are going on there. So
Do you allow cross-country skiing at all?
Yes, if, weather permitting, last year, I think I was only able to grade the trail once, and, the
Assuming we have snow, of course.
Yeah, snow. But what I'll do is I'll take the trail to the disc baskets, and it goes all around the course, so it opens it up for snowshoeing, cross country, and then it also allows a path for disc golfers to play. So it kind of works in their favor, and you know, and a lot of people walk their dogs and stuff around the course during the winter, and it's well, actually I've had a lot of golfers because
Yeah.
I haven't had any snow, but yeah, it's been quite utilized during the winter, a lot more than it ever has before. Usually it was just closed down and that was it.
Do you have an estimate as to how much it would cost to put in the additional holes for making it 18-hole disc golf, approximately?
Well, I do all the labor and clearing for the disc baskets, $3,900
For,
for another set of 9.
oh, okay. And that would be just for the hardware portion of it?
Correct.
Does the disc golf course overlap or follow the same pattern as the
You
golf,
can-
or is it completely separate? How
you
is
can
that
disc
integrated
golf
together?
And play with somebody that's golfing.
Like, do you
At
use the
the same
same
time.
tees all the way around?
Yep.
or- Okay,
So there could be a foursome, that includes 2 golfers and 2 disc golf.
okay, I see. And you said right now, for this month, this is a 1-month extension of the prior contract,
so
so
it's-
do you have activities that are going on right now in winter and through the winter?
Yes.
What kind of things? I mean, you can let people know.
Well, I mean, like I said, basically, clubhouse is closed, but we do allow golf, you know, we allow the disc golf. We had, the Chapel Valley Church had their Christmas, tree, no,
Lighting.
giveaway.
Oh, no,
I think
it was
that's
a
it.
giveaway, yeah.
So like if the place is rented for events, you know, obviously it's maintained clean and it's staffed. But otherwise,
You really need snow.
yeah, without snow, I mean, really, it's just kind of, you know.
Can't really do
I have
much.
a question. So having disc golf in winter or cross-country skiers or snowshoers, how would that bring revenue to you, or does it not?
It really doesn't, but
Right, there's no one there collecting a fee at the gate when you show up with
No,
snowshoes?
no,
Okay.
there's no charge. It's just a service that I offer
Okay.
to bring and open up the course during the winter in our off season.
All right,
But that's not to say that as we continue with the hub work and things like that we could, eventually rent skates or, rent snowshoes or do those kinds of things. If
okay.
we look to do, additional activities in the neighborhood, so.
Was the skating on the pond or where?
No, we tried to, if you're familiar with Traceway, you know where the tennis courts are there?
Yeah.
Just east of the tennis courts, we
Oh.
tried to do it there in the ground. Well, I didn't, the we is, Dan did. The ground is just uneven and
No.
so
It's not a stormwater pond,
no, he.
because there is a stormwater pond there too, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
Yes.
Connected to the creek.
But that's aerated, so we cannot allow
Right,
people on
yeah,
it. So.
We were-
that's why stormwater ponds cannot be used for ice skating, because they're
Right.
too deep and it's polluted water or
Well, and
something.
we tried to do a land rink adjacent
Oh,
to the
okay,
tennis court.
yeah.
Dan had a couple, about nine strikes against him before he even started, but he gave it the college try, that's for sure.
So right now, if people just want to walk out there and either go walking, snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, or maybe even play disc golf, they can just go right out there.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, a lot of pass holders and others have been taking advantage of the nice weather, and even today there was disc golfers out there. And,
Since there is, it's probably not finalized yet, but there's this move by the city to get a court to release the restrictions on the original contract for, especially for lights along Fish Hatchery, because of that pathway that goes along Fish Hatchery. Let's assume the court allows, yes, you can take the restriction off. Would Dan be able to install lights out on the course anywhere if he wanted to, presumably with city permission and such.
You know, and I think within the request to the circuit court, it makes it a little bit broader, as long as it has a recreational function.
Yeah,
So I think that certainly would classify as a recreational function. And certainly McKee Farms Park, we have the walking path that goes around and it has, you know, low-level lighting, so, yeah, I would think that that could be something that could be.
yeah, I don't see anything in the wording that would prevent him. I mean, the wording generally says, I think, as long as it's primarily a golf course.
Yeah.
Just golf, whatever.
And then recreational, some kind of a recreational.
And the
function.
lighting wasn't specific to this one bridge,
No.
multi-use path along Fish Hatchery. It could extend through the whole course, so
It could, and,
it's an option.
and like I say too, we, you know, as we do the hub work, which actually Wade is gonna be coming to the February Park Commission to kind of give an update on that work, it really, you know, we're gonna try and make it a more, you know, a better utilized facility and those kinds of things, so it's pretty cool, actually. And
How-
Dan's been a great partner.
Yeah, just have one question about the maintenance of the facility. Who maintains the facilities, and then what kind of effort has been made to look at deferred maintenance and what the long-term prospects are for the improvements?
I basically do everything. I mean, I maintain the inside, outside of both the clubhouse, maintenance.
But the clubhouse actually belongs to the
Yeah.
city, right?
And what we did do is through the CIP process, we did improve that facility. And certainly I would see there's some bridges and there's some, you know, if there's some trails or those kinds of things that we'd like to add to our facility, that would be through the CIP process.
Okay,
That the city
but
would.
at this point, there isn't anything planned?
My understanding in the past that capital improvements to the grounds and the physical buildings and stuff is the city's, comes under the city's responsibility.
That we would do the improvements because it is our facilities. And Dan, like he mentioned, he purchases the mowers, he purchases the greens mowers, he purchases the chemicals, he mows, he does all of those. But you know, improvements, capital improvements, I really feel that that's, you know, that's our facility, so we should be the one that's.
No, I'm just trying to clarify. It makes sense to me, but I would like to see that it's adequately maintained.
And they do a heck of a job with it.
Because we had to replace bridges, I know, quite a while ago, but that was still covered under our
And
responsibility as a city.
And part of the work that the hub study is going to do is you know, some implementation of some plans. There's golf course improvements that's going to be part of it. There's, you know, our recreational facility that's going to be a part of it, and then our potential community center is going to be part of it. So you know, that study is going to provide us a lot of that guidance, if you would.
I have a question about the resolution that is, I don't know, a couple of pages further, somewhere in there, wherever you find it.
Sure. Ooh.
That's too
No,
far. No, it's not that. Maybe it was earlier.
Must have been.
Okay, on my computer, it's page 9 out of 83.
Oh,
Toward the beginning.
there it is.
Okay, that one. Now, I numbered the whereases just for reference.
Mm-hmm.
But this seems, well, confusing, and I have a question about this. Now, the 6th whereas says includes $30,000 annual payment for the management. The 7th whereas says, reading into the middle of it, February 1 ending December 31st, in the amount of $50,000 annually with an increase of $1,000 in each of the preceding 9 years. This whole thing between 6th whereas and 7th whereas, it doesn't, I don't follow the payment schedule there. Because what you described when you introduced this was you said 50,000 and then another 1,000 for the next 10 years, getting up to 60.
Each year.
Which I don't read it this way, not when it says preceding 9 years.
Each of the following 9 years,
Well, I mean, Is it the intention of?
Shouldn't it say
It says
subsequent
30,000 and it says 50,000, I don't know.
Well, here
According
it
to this
says-
language, where this is,
Well, what it is whereas the 2020 budget includes $30,000 for annual payment. So that's what we have in the 20.
that's the
and
current.
Yep, that's currently, and Dan's proposal is for $50,000 with a $1,000 increase. $50,000 the first year with a $1,000 increase for each of the 9 preceding years. So there's a difference that needs to be made up there.
That seems confusing to me
So
about
is
that.
it 60,000
preceding
then
one.
for the remaining 9 years, not 50, 60, 70, 80?
No, it'd be
It'd be
50,
50,
51,
51,
52,
That-
53, 54,
Okay, that's what it's.
55.
Till the onward 60, correct?
I mean, one way I would read this is 50,000 at the last year, and then in the preceding years,
Well, is it,
down, in other words, starting at 40,000 and going 41, 42, 43, up to 50 at the 10th year.
is the proceeding, is
The
proceeding not the correct word
I
there?
don't think so, that means before.
But I think when it ends with the 2029, the reason why it's saying the proceeding is because it's saying, so 2029,
Oh,
And then
Yeah,
coming
yeah, it
back.
says
And then-
2029, 50,000.
but I think it's saying the contract starting February 1st and ending 2029 in the amount of 50,000. And then it would say the $1,000 applies to each preceding year to 2029, so that 2028, like I read it as preceding 2029.
Going backwards.
Correct, because the contract runs through 2029.
Yeah.
And the years preceding 2029, it increases $1,000 every year.
oh, I see,
Yeah,
I see,
but,
I see.
I mean, I would
So
say.
preceding or
I
subsequent?
would say successive or something like that, in each successive year, from the beginning in 2020, and then through 2029 is an increase in $1,000 each successive year, rather than, preceding is backwards, working backwards.
So the city clerk comes up with the wording. I'm assuming.
Well, and
Should we
then-
assume she knows
In finance.
the way that it should be
Yeah.
written?
Well, and actually, yeah,
Well,
the finance helps draft it. and
Right,
that kind of stuff.
okay, all right.
Contract is really the controlling document anyway. Come
So
right
it-
down to it.
Yeah, well, I think that everyone kind of gets the gist of it.
I didn't, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I'm hesitant to make changes to a document that's looked already approved, or with the guidance of, you said finance committee,
Well, they-
financial officers
Okay.
here.
They review all of it.
I would at least like to officially suggest on the record that the 7th whereas be reworded for a better clarification about how this fee schedule is paid. How it starts in 2020, how it ends in 2029.
I can certainly, if there's a second to that, I can certainly
Yeah, I'll make it.
make,
Do you have any off-the-cuff suggestions?
It's a sort of, yeah, off the cuff, I mean,
well, it could be
I'm not
real.
officially
it
making
could
an
be-
amendment onto this because.
No, it could be just clear that in
Yeah,
2020, it's $50,000, and 2021, it's $51,000, and
Yeah.
2022,
That would be
you know, just to be
very good.
more clear on what it is.
Yeah.
And then what I'll do is we'll approve it with a suggestion by the park commission for the 7th whereas to be this, and then the common council can take a look at it, Sarah can take a look at it, and they can decide whether if they're okay with the way it is, they understand what it is, that's fine, or they
Yeah.
can,
Especially the finance committee would be the ones to have the most say on this. And then I presume that the 3 different, now be it further resolved, those are the ones where
they've got to decide.
various, I don't know if we have a say in this, or is it just council's decision about, this is the idea of either one or more, or all of them are either left in or something is taken out, those are the optional ones
Yeah,
you
those are
mentioned?
the options, yeah,
Okay.
that finance provided.
Yeah, then, and you said that somewhere along the line, maybe council or finance or somebody chooses what of those they want to keep in.
They're gonna have to do that.
Yeah, I just want to comment as a resident to the council, I would like to see all 3 of them kept in to save the money on all this. I watched the council meeting on those, the budget amendments and everything, and I liked what Misty Dodge, our finance director, said about you don't have to spend it right up to the last dollar to the expenditure restraint limit. it doesn't hurt to be under. So all these things here were the council looking to spend, you know, a little extra money, let's spend it on something. I don't have any problem with not spending money out of the city budget. So if all three of these were kept in,
They,
we'll save a little money.
what you mean to remove all,
But no, to keep all of these in, because they all say, let's see here, amends the budget by 12,500. The second one says, remove the 20,168, and the third one says, amends the city budget to remove the 13,000. I'm fine with, you know, taking all those out, and then that allows plenty money, or let's say enough money and more, to cover this golf course extra payment that's needed. You don't have to spend it to the last dollar.
Well, I think they understand that.
yeah, that's their,
That's what
There's no way the vote
Yeah.
went.
that's their call.
I'm
yeah.
speaking as
Does this,
my resident interest.
Well,
change-
again, you can come to the finance committee meeting, council meeting.
does this change it though in requiring, 3/4 vote or
Yeah.
a simple
yeah.
majority?
No, I think it, well.
Because there's a
where's
budget
the-
amendment. That's what
Yeah,
some budget
yep,
amendments
it,
require
here's,
3/4
yep,
vote.
here's the referral. A simple majority,
The 2/3 vote, yeah, required because.
yeah, a 2/3 vote to the council is required, yeah. That's what it says in the referral sheet.
That same requirement fall to park commission as well, or no?
No, we're not amending the budget, we're just saying we're good with the contract, and then the common council is gonna have to amend the budget. We're not amending the budget, we'll leave that up to the common council.
Yeah, we don't have
We
an
don't
official
have-
say in that.
Yeah, we're just kind of,
Well, it does say amend the city's 2020 budget. I mean, I'm not sure I really care, but it's, you know,
I'm
I
kind
guess
of,
I'm trying to determine whether it needs a separate amendment for the budget and one for the contract, or here we're kind of, seems like we're combining them.
Aren't they showing the pathway as to how it would be paid?
Don't you have to do both? Yeah.
that's what they're gonna vote on, is that's gonna be the budget amendment. The council will vote on the budget amendment. I think before the park commission, it's just an acceptance of Dan's proposal, and then the common council will decide whether they'll accept it, and if they do accept it, then they're gonna have to do a budget amendment at the council level, that has to have a two-third vote in order to do it.
I just have a general question. Is there some review process in terms of the operation where there's some reporting on the part of the person operating? And Scott, are you the person who reviews that?
Yes, he provides an annual loss profit balance sheet.
Okay, but what about complaints or comments that people make? Is there a formal structure for doing that, or they just go to him and we don't hear about it?
I haven't heard any complaints on it. I haven't heard any complaints.
Okay,
no.
that's fine.
No.
I'm just looking at what kind of oversight or what kind of involvement does the Parks Director have with the functioning of the golf course?
I would suspect if there would be a complaint, they would first go to Dan as a manager, and if they didn't get it resolved, I would suspect they would come to the city, because it is, owned by us.
Okay.
Well, we've been meeting every Friday for the last 5 years, and you haven't said anything to me yet, so.
We meet pretty regular.
Oh, okay, well, good. Totally unknown for me.
Okay, if there's no comments or questions on the resolution, we would need a motion and a second.
Do you want to make a motion with that clarification?
I'll make a motion with my
Clarification.
request of clarification of the seventh whereas.
And I can certainly do that.
Okay.
I'll
Is there a second to that
yeah.
motion?
And
Second.
Sarah?
Okay,
Sarah?
sure. All right. All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carried.
Congratulations, Dan.
Thank
We'll,
you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.
We'll see you on, we'll see you tomorrow.
Simpler than you thought. Yeah, very easy.
Sure, cup of coffee.
All right, item 5B, wind turbine at McKee Farms Park. Modify agreement to replace turbine with light. John, you wanna,
Well, and
Scott, I guess you
yeah.
can start. and then-
Why don't I, and correct me if I'm wrong here, John, but this was a project that was initiated in 2008 as a demonstration project for a wind turbine, and MG&E installed it, paid for it, took maintenance of it, all of those kinds of things. There was a 10-year length of that agreement. And actually what's before us tonight is the draft, the new agreement that MG&E is providing, and they actually provided that to the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission asked Valerie and the legal department to review that agreement, but Valerie mentioned, well, why don't you take it to Parks, take it to Public Works to see how they feel about it. So that's really what this opportunity is certainly to gather information and ask questions and all of those kinds of things. And at the end of the day, this might kind of shape MG&E's proposal that will then officially come to the Plan Commission and then need to be referred out and have resolutions and all of those kinds of things. So similar to, a park planning process, John, as a developer, has the proposed park plan, and we're here to kind of provide comments, gather information, provide feedback, and certainly with the hope that John would take those comments and thoughts into consideration, and that it would actually come back to the Park Commission again at some point in time as being referred from the council.
So we're getting like a first comment
Yep,
step on it?
And this is really, the document that you have in here is a draft agreement that MG&E has provided the city. So certainly that, and John can certainly speak to that agreement. I know there's been some questions along the way, just with the new Park Commission members to get caught up on what's going on there. And then, I guess just general discussion on thoughts that the Park Commission might have.
I want to comment that David's questions that you answered and then you sent it out to the commission members here were very good questions.
And I shared those with John.
Okay, yeah, because I know the background of this back from 2008 when this was proposed, but when I saw this, I had a lot of those same questions, so those were good questions that David asked.
So I don't know how, John, do you want to kind of give and maybe you could come up.
Oh, sure.
And I don't know if there's anything that I didn't say, and maybe we could just open it up right to questions. I know there was some specific questions that were provided.
I guess I can provide just a little bit more background.
Thank
I think you did a good job there, Scott. So it was done as one of many energy demonstration projects MG&E has put out throughout the community. And this was called a urban wind turbine, vertical axis turbine. So we put it as an energy demonstration project to learn more about it. We'd had inquiries from customers and businesses as to, how effective they are. So we worked with the manufacturer, installed it in that area. It's a good resource wind area where the wind is, pretty good for a vertical axis turbine. So we installed it. And along with that, we put in a monitoring system to monitor the wind speed and to monitor the energy output from the turbine. And we made that available to the public. And what we found in the first year is that there was really minimal power coming from the unit, and actually the electronics and heating system inside the controls cabinet at the unit was consuming more power than the turbine itself was putting out, which was unfortunate. So we expressed our concerns with the manufacturer, and they worked with us to put in a larger turbine. They felt that a larger turbine on the same pole would capture more wind and generate more power. So we had the installation modified, worked with the city at that time, put in the new turbine, and monitored it for another 7 years, and really found it to be a technology that just was ineffective and didn't do what it was expected to do. So at that time, we said, okay, we've learned from this, and we're at the end of the period of the contract. The technology's not proven, we're ready to shut it down. And we thought, well, as an alternative to shutting it down, removing it, because there's infrastructure there, we came up with the ideas like, okay, is the city interested in having light from that pole there? Because it's basically a heavy-duty pole that could accommodate a light, high-efficiency LED light, called basically a private light. We would install a light on the top, take the turbine out, and then offer electricity through that light at no charge for a period of 10 years, and during that time period, we'd maintain it. So what it is just, if that's something of interest, we would be able to offer that. And like Scott said, if you have other ideas on how to, improve that installation, we would look at that. But that's where it's at, so.
So you're proposing using the existing pole, which is higher than the other lights, correct? So would the lights that you propose to put on there, would they be different or?
But you can see in the photograph there.
Yeah, there's another photo at the end, but, so if the turbine's cut off and you take 16 from 42, it's a 26-foot tall pole, and it looks like that. And you can see to the left of it, the lighting that was designed for the area. And actually that light, if you go all around the parking lot where this proposed pole is, there's lights like that one going all around the parking lot, if I recall.
I don't understand MG&E's purpose here. You did a demonstration project. That type of vertical wind turbine, they still make. Did you seriously look at another manufacturer that might have a more appropriate unit?
So that manufacturer, which was a large manufacturer at the time, is no longer in business. So for us to actually get parts or repairs to that one we don't have anybody we can go to.
I understand that, but there are other manufacturers of that vertical wind turbine. Is that not correct?
I don't know.
Well,
I think,
just Google it.
yeah, but so we did get inquiries, and we researched it and put in a turbine that we felt was.
No, I know that's the past. Now, you don't feel like that turbine was satisfactory. You want to discontinue the program. I'm just asking you, did you look at other manufacturers that might have a credible turbine that's vertical that would work on that pole?
To continue the program?
Yes.
Yeah, so the vertical access, like this technology is called vertical access. It's my understanding that our engineering folks looked at this technology and basically have come to the agreement that it's not worth pursuing anymore. And that, I think they found that this to be consistent. These were sort of, a variety were being put in many years ago, 10 years ago, and I think we found that it's probably not what's expected to be. And our engineering folks looked at it, some of our people that do a lot of wind engineering, and what they found is that this technology really needs to capture a lot more wind than what these are doing. And when I say these, that vertical access turbine. So it wasn't like this particular technology or this particular company we felt wasn't a good company. It was the technology itself.
Well, you look on the internet, they're proposed for wind farms offshore. There are people that feel that type of technology is still viable.
Yeah, I guess we didn't see that to be the case, so that's.
Because we don't have enough wind
It's
to
not,
accommodate
it's not
that
cap,
style of a turbine, or?
well, that style, that vertical axis is not capturing enough wind to actually generate the power. So you look at the typical utility scale, propeller type ones,
Well, you're comparing a midget with a giant. I mean, come on.
but it's different technology.
Well, but are you trying to demonstrate the idea that you could use wind energy to develop some electricity, not maybe the most efficient, because we're not always interested in the most efficient.
But, yeah.
And that it
what we-
would be viable, but then to go and say, oh, but we could give you a light, where we're not even looking for light, sounds silly.
So the nature of a demonstration project is to, which I didn't realize till you said just now, is it's a benefit to the community, because they learn something, but you are learning something at the same time.
Exactly.
And you are getting inquiries from interested parties who
Right.
came and looked at it there.
And, yeah, we've done, my gosh, many, probably 30-plus demonstration projects to learn more about the technology.
Is there any place or any type of wind energy, are there new demonstration projects going on for newer technology?
You're seeing improvements, but they're all at that large scale,
The large rotors and
right?
out in the farm field
Again,
areas?
our people, and we looked at this and had engineers weigh in on it because we've built some large-scale utility generation. And they just came to the conclusion after looking at this that we're not capturing the wind with this. And these are people that are responsible for designing, implementing, monitoring, and doing it on a daily basis. And they said, but again, you gotta learn, you gotta install it, you gotta monitor it, you gotta track it. And the new one didn't work, and the power, it's not like it wasn't a lot of power, it really was not producing power. And so now it's time.
But when you say it's not producing power, the amount of power that was produced, what would it power? I mean, you're talking about it just in general terms. I don't know if it's going to
Did it provide any net gain?
No, it did not. So you had a question on, there's a credit that MGE was gonna provide back to the city for the power produced. And we sent a letter back early on to the city saying that the actual net power is not there, that the power in the cabinet, because the cabinet's got a bunch of controls in there, and there's a heater in there to keep it operating, and it wasn't producing enough power to actually provide more than what the cabinet was using.
So you don't have a program any new program that might coincide with this type of facility, I guess, with the pole or anything like that?
This really was one of a kind, trying to understand this, because again, there was inquiries about this, and years ago, we saw a lot of people interested, and we got a lot of calls on this one. We fielded a lot of calls from people wanting, and again, it's an urban design, it allows you to put wind in an urban environment, and that was interesting and appealing, and but unfortunately, based on what we monitored here, wasn't working.
In other words, people saw the turbine going and they thought, hey, I would be interested in putting one up in my backyard, but MG&E says it doesn't produce the power, don't bother, don't waste your money, because you're not gonna be, producing power back into the grid. Is that what
MGE
you're?
was trying to do the research to see if it
Yeah.
was a viable option.
Right, and the people who saw it liked it, and you were saying
And-
it's not worth it.
And MGE said, well, it just
Right.
doesn't work, it doesn't generate enough power.
So we're hearing then that there's no plan to put anything else up. And so then the question is what then?
Yeah, and I guess I would go back to it, it just, it strikes me as being ill-conceived. It's a patchwork job that makes no sense. No one called for light there. Do you have has anybody requested light there? And look at it. It looks like an engineering marvel. I mean, it's all engineering. There's nothing aesthetic about it. I'm an architect. That, you couldn't commercially sell that to anybody, or virtually.
Well, the other option, I guess, is to just plain remove it, right?
Right, sure.
Yeah.
Is that box, is that part of it?
Yes, that box is part of it, so basically, if we remove it, you wouldn't see, the pole would be gone, the box, the little slab that it sits on, would be back to
In fairness
grass.
to Dave is kind enough to come in and say, hey, it's not working, we're gonna take it down, but,
Right,
John,
John, here's another potential option, are we interested in it? And they were
Right.
kind enough to provide it, and if it's something that we're not interested in, then
Well,
so be it.
that's not how you do things. You don't create light where it's not requested.
So
Patrick, you had a question?
Yeah, I've been familiar with this since it was first proposed into 2008, and I've actually talked with John a few times over the years, including just earlier today, because I wanted to know a little more about this, and I wanted to know if John was coming so we could ask these questions. In my personal view, I don't like the idea of removing the box and the pole and all of the investment of the infrastructure into there. The idea of putting this thing in McKee Park was that it was an experiment. The experiment said the first turbine was a drain rather than producing power. The second one is still not worth it. So it's what to do with this infrastructure of the control box and the pole. And I don't like the idea of pulling it out. The whole idea was an experiment. The experiment gave us a result. I would like the pole and the control box there to stay. One thing I'd ask John is what about this light up there? And I believe you have some more information about the light. The light, as I understand it from John, is somewhat experimental also because it's LED. The LED technology is up to a point. I don't know if there's a whole lot of experimental LED lighting. We see new things showing up in the stores all the time. I think, if I understand right, that this is a somewhat better than your average off-the-shelf LED light. So I'd like to see how bright it is and experiment, see how it works, see how it lasts, see how much light comes out and everything. One thing that I would like in this contract is to open it up a little more. As I read all this legal stuff in the contract, I believe, as I understand it, that this says MG&E can put this light up there for the next 10 years with an option for another 10 years, but it is this light. Now, John has said that the engineers say a turbine is just not working. And John also told me that solar panels producing electricity are better than turbines from all these experiments going on. As an option to leave it up to MG&E, I would like something in the contract language here to say that if MG&E comes up with not a solar panel today because they're no better than what anybody has, but if they come up with, let's say, somebody produces a super efficient solar panel to produce electricity, just like the turbine was supposed to produce electricity, give them the option to put a solar panel up there. And that might be either to replace the light or maybe put a solar panel up above the light so the light is shining down, the solar panel is up there collecting power, and it needs a battery to collect in the daytime and shine the light at night, but give them the option to experiment with this experimental site and try anything that comes along in the next 10 or 20 years.
Patrick, I think MG&E is fully capable of removing that pole, removing that box of controls, putting it at another site where it's more appropriate. And I think that would be a better approach. This is, first of all, it just doesn't make any sense. Come on. In our society, we want to generate more energy just to have more light where nobody asked for it. We don't need it. It's silly. It's just plain silly. It's the dog, the horse chasing the dog.
I look at
I
it
do
as
have
an
a question
experiment.
on the light though. Is it a directional light? Is it a cutoff light or?
It's considered an area light, so we have a lighting program where we install lights for businesses, private use, and this is an area light for private use that we put in here. So it's really not experimental. It's a high efficiency LED light that is dark sky approved. Puts about around the base about 1 foot candle and out about 40-50 feet. It's down to probably about 10% of that.
Does that, I forget, but does that parking lot have lighting currently?
Yeah, yes, it does.
It does.
All the way around the entire parking lot.
And
they
within
look-
the parking
They look, and within it, and they look just like that blue one
The
to the
blue
left.
one. Right.
So I appreciate that we're here talking about all kinds of possibilities, but from my view, I would be in favor of it being completely removed because it's not something where if this was part of an original plan for a brand new park, it wouldn't be selected as an option. We would simply say, we're going to just go with the one on the left. And what's there is just too much. It's massive and it overpowers the area. When it was a turbine, everyone could understand why. And now it would really be distracting to a really quiet, serene park. Not always quiet, but, you know,
Right.
a nice, a serene setting.
Well, if you were to remove everything down to the concrete, would there be any trip hazards or any
No,
issues?
we'd restart back to the grass and take everything out. Yeah, no,
But
and
would
again, it
it-
was just an option if you felt you wanted to have a light, that's all it was. It wasn't
Yeah.
trying to do any more than that.
It's just a
But do you
slab, right? There's
Yeah,
nothing
but
below that, or?
do you see what the comments that I'm making? That one, we didn't ask for a light. One, two, it's not needed. Three, it's inconsistent with the other lighting that's in the park. The park is consistently lit with the type of fixture that's in the background. And it just makes no sense to me as to why you would make a gesture like that. You can make that gesture any place you want to. MG&E has all kinds of opportunities to put in a light, to put in a demonstration. This is such a token approach. I mean, honestly, I'm flabbergasted.
Patrick?
A point regarding what David just said. Those parking lot lights, the bell-shaped ones right there, they're on a timer. They go off at probably midnight or something. Would this light be on all night?
It's actually, we could put controls on if you wanted dusk to dawn, or if you, which would be basically, or it could be shut off, some of the time it does
I-
off.
I would actually like the idea, since I hadn't thought of this, but since David mentioned something there, I would actually like to have that as an area light, like you described, stay on all night. It's a night light for the park, so that if anybody is roaming around in the dark in there 2, 3, 4 in the morning, they got all lights shining on them.
Well,
And to,
It's far enough from the neighborhood.
No,
where
it
shouldn't be
is
It's
allowed.
not being
Patrick,
requested.
and it's a silly idea, and we're entering the wrong course. We're wasting energy.
I agree that it looks a little odd, because it had a turbine up there which was unique.
Look
and
at a
people-
little odd. I mean, that's a Frankenstein. Come on.
But the idea of the turbine was, as John says, people see the turbine, they get interested, it's spinning, they figure, it's gotta be doing something. Would it be worthwhile for me to put one in my backyard or my farm or something
No, that
like
was
that?
a
And
great
MG&E said, no, it's not worth it. Now we have a light, people will see the light.
That's not
It
the
is odd
purpose.
looking, but I'm okay with it, it's a demonstration, the way that I look at it. There's a lot of, I don't know how much, but a lot of infrastructure invested in putting that in. I would like to see it used for something, anything, rather than tear it out and
Listen.
waste all of that. And if people see the light and they figure, I've got a business or a backyard or something, and I would like kind of to have a light like that because they see it's
Patrick,
like this and
Patrick, why don't we
everything.
put up
Then
20
they
of
can-
them, and we'll have every different kind that's made.
Let's give
Well,
it a
that's a
chance.
suggestion.
it's just,
Scott, I have a question based on his. Is that going to provide more security, you think, for
well,
the shelter?
and actually, I'd have to double check, but I believe the lights on the shelter, certainly the lights on the path, I think there's lights on the shelter that stay on longer.
They stay on 24 hours.
They may, yeah.
No, they
They
do
do.
stay on 24
So-
hours. I see them from my bedroom window.
Okay,
Dave would be the authority on that.
okay.
In McGaw Park, I know the
Stand
lights
corrected.
go off at midnight.
Personally, I'm kind of ambivalent about the whole thing.
Well,
If you want to take it down to the concrete, I don't care. If you want a light, I don't. No.
Well, I'm interested in some integrity to the design of our parks. This was a program
Yeah,
that was started, and it did not work.
Mhm.
Just to put a light on there because it's a new light, MG&E has all kinds of places in the world to put up a light. You don't just pick some arbitrary thing to stick a light up.
they're
Well,
willing,
we can.
they're willing to
That's
remove
why
it
my
if
point was
we
you
can
Take
decide.
it down to the concrete. It doesn't matter to me. So I guess, what do we want to do with this? Put a light on, take it completely down,
Well, I think the,
preserve the pole for something else?
Can I make a
I don't know if
motion?
this is gonna go anywhere, but I would make a motion, I presume, we're doing this as an action item, right?
right.
I would make a motion that it stays, that the light is put up as MG&E has requested. I know she's not gonna second this or anything, but,
Respectful
but,
disagreements, I guess.
but,
Yeah.
I think it's a demonstration. I like the demonstration. I like to use the investment that has been put into this. I would like to add an option into this contract that if MG&E should find something, anything else that they would like to demonstrate or experiment with on this site, that be allowed also. They needed a place to put this thing. They asked the city of Fitchburg, and the city of Fitchburg says, yeah, this park is okay, fine, go ahead. It was all in agreement 10 years ago. I would like that to not be torn out and thrown away.
Yeah, that was a motion, I guess.
That's a motion.
Do we have a second to that motion?
Can we discuss his motion? Because I do agree that I like the idea, there's a lot of kids that come to a park, there's a lot of people that come to the park. If it were an educational option, it'd be great if it could promote other alternative energy sources, that if there was a solar option available, I like that. And I guess I'm very confused by your aggressive reaction to a light, just because I think there's a pathway here. Parks benefit from lights, and that if people want to use the park, lights provide safety, but I don't think that the disgust is warranted, that I think parks benefit from lights. It's on a path.
Why don't we put up 10 of them?
Would you like 10 of them?
No.
So we're talking about this one light.
Yes.
So I think
it's-
that's the conversation.
Yes, the conversation is, as a designer, you have a problem and you look for a solution. We have a solution looking for a problem.
When I went to the park, it wasn't dark, so the lights weren't on. But there are many, many, many of these very pretty matching blue lights everywhere. And so if there were a complaint about things being too dark or problems, it might be a solution, but it seems like there is no problem with lighting already.
Scott, have you heard any? I guess I would look to you as the
Mark?
expert.
Mark?
Yep.
I want to make a complaint on the record that I think those blue bell-shaped lights are dark. I don't like them. They shine directly down. You get a circular beam pattern right underneath the light. Maybe goes out as much as 50 feet wide. I have walked through McKeep Park many times over many years in the dark. I do not like those lights. So I'm saying I do not like the blue lights. I would like to see as a demonstration how this light works. And if people complain about it, maybe David will, as an area light, change it to something else or do something in the future with it. I would like it to stay on all night. I hope that it's far enough away that it doesn't disturb the residents.
Don't be hopeful, please.
Okay, well, I don't like the blue, those bell-shaped blue lights.
First off,
Yeah, that's not,
I'll take.
I'm just, since there was no complaints, I'm making it a complaint. I
So
don't
we've
like those
got,
lights.
we've got Patrick, who had an amendment to.
A motion.
A motion.
that was seconded.
Was there a second?
Yeah, I think Sarah.
I asked a question just from an educational perspective, that I do like that idea, that a lot of kids come to this park. If we could offer some type of educational option, I think it'd be great to have kids exposed to that, so I would second that.
But and I still have to ask a question. Is that an educational, that's not an educational option?
That's not an education, but I feel like potentially things could change in the future, being optimistic, I don't know.
It's
But
a demonstration.
it's a lot of, well, from my understanding, it's quite a bit of infrastructure to take out, where if potentially there could be an option to add one, I like that idea.
See, MG&E covers the cost of removal. It's not a city cost,
Yes.
correct?
Right, that's correct.
Right.
Regardless.
Well, it's an important point,
It's a good call.
I think.
Mhm.
I guess I would ask, does MG&E, are they aware of any other options? I mean, you seem to want to demonstrate something, but yet, actually, when you go there, I'm not sure where public is able to find out how much wind energy was demonstrated. Was it publicly
Yeah, we
shown
had,
on a website?
it was for several years, and I think we pulled it down because the information was not good. I mean, that was years ago, we pulled that down, but it was publicly available.
Some kind of signage
I mean-
that was there, you mean?
And,
Or no, you're just talking about the website?
the website, but
Okay.
there was signage at one time there. I'm not sure the status of the signage, but there was
It's
signage.
not there.
It's not there?
It doesn't exist.
No, I don't think so either.
Okay.
I think it was a good idea that MG&E undertook this program to begin with. I think it now has changed substantially. And I think something's being offered that does not make sense to me. And Sarah, I would say that when you design something, it's to solve problems, it's to come up with something, and there's nothing aesthetic about that. And it's just really a one-off thing, it's a gesture on MG&E's part, but I don't actually understand how it fits into a bigger, more meaningful whole. If you put some meters down there and you actually could tell somebody that that's the case, when you go to the library, you could see the energy that's saved from the solar panels, it's something that's active. Any lead project that has public education as it relates to energy requires much more than sticking a lamp on a pole.
So I guess we have a,
I think
Yeah, we got a motion.
A first and a second.
So any comments really should be directed to that motion.
Okay.
I still think that it's not solving a problem. It's a demonstration. Even if it's not an experiment, it was meant as an experimental site. Even if it's not an experiment on, I thought this might be a little more advanced solar light or LED light. It's still a demonstration. I like it.
well,
All right. Any other comments? Afraid to ask. Okay, a motion and a second has been made. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
With my amendment to loosen the contract, or how do you want to take that? I would like to, like I said, I want it to stay. I'm in favor of the light, but I would like the contract have an option that MG&E could try something else up there with or in place of that light if they find something that they would like to
In the
try.
future, yeah.
Keep it an experimental type site. So that's my motion.
and Sarah
And that's, I
seconded
agree with the
Okay,
educational, yes.
opportunity. That MG&E could use it.
It's education, not just for kids, like you said, but for everybody.
Agreed,
Good.
Yeah.
even for energy consumption,
Okay. So you're okay with that?
yes.
Okay. All right, so it is what you're proposing.
Okay?
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All
Aye.
those,
That's two.
I'm not sure I heard the ayes very well.
Yeah, well, Sarah and.
Two.
Sarah
Aye.
And Pat, yep.
Okay. Let's go around the table.
Aye.
No,
Aye.
No.
Okay,
Up to you.
up to me.
This is draft at this point anyway, right?
What,
I agree with Dave, it's not very aesthetic, but I see your point. I'll say aye.
So Patrick, Sarah, and Mark said that we're going to
Just broke
keep
the
it,
tie, that's all.
we're gonna keep it as a demonstration.
what does it demonstrate?
I mean, there's always an option to
That light.
take it down to.
I
Well,
mean,
is
come
there?
on.
Well, I mean,
I have a question about what we've just done.
You have no integrity.
We're
We're allowing them.
We're asking, no, I think I know what we just did, but does MG&E really want to be a part of what we just did? Talking
Yes.
about a demonstration projects in the future that are
That's a good
unknown
que-
to
that's a
us
good
for now?
question.
And I think, to your point, Mark, what I'd like to do is just run that by folks and say, you know, here was a discussion, that there's some interest in keeping it as a demonstration project for future. In the interim, a light would go on it, and if there's opportunities for a demonstration project, and that's language we'd look at incorporating that. And I guess I can follow with Scott and let him know if that's something that.
That was my understanding from Patrick's
right,
question.
that's what my amendment does, is
Right.
open it up to other things. And even if it's not our own money or from the city of Fitchburg or something, this is MG&E's, I presume, investment to put that in. It
Right.
would be on them, on their cost to remove it. But even as I understand it from John, MG&E would prefer to keep it and use it for something.
No,
So I
Well,
like,
I-
I like that, I'm in favor of that.
Whatever.
But the option of taking it a step further with this, opening it up, as you were suggesting, Patrick, that's something that I'd want to talk with folks and make sure people are comfortable with that. Because as we've proposed, it's just the LED light.
It would be entirely at MG&E's option. If you come up with something else that you want to stick up a pole, you come back and ask the city of Fitchburg. It's just right now, the way I read this contract says, put a light up there, that light, nothing else, no different light, no solar panel, no other wind turbine, no nothing else. That light for 10
The
years.
other thing is that in the documents provided to us, the reason it wasn't the reason this solution came up was that it was going to be too expensive for MG&E to remove. And so, does this mean, let's say the other commissions look at this and everyone says, it's beautiful, let's keep it. In 10 years, there's a contract that ends and it is, again, too expensive to remove.
I think we need to clarify that statement. I'm not sure where that came from.
Oh,
And we
okay.
do have money budget. That's not a MG&E saying that's too expensive to remove.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
thank
And-
you.
And you asked those questions,
Yeah.
what is the cost? I don't know, but so when we put these projects together, part of the budget is what is the cost to demo this and remove it? So that's something, if the city chooses, so I don't want that
So the city chooses to keep it.
or the city chooses to have us remove it.
Right, but if the city chooses to keep it and then nothing really comes of it somewhere down the road, then who pays to remove it?
That's
Still
MG&E again,
MG&E.
yeah.
I would like to suggest that MG&E thoughtfully consider a demonstration project that related to solar lighting that would be in the kids area, in which it would be adequately signed, and that there is a lot of creative lighting that you could do in that crossword park, the splash pad, but start in a positive way that this is what this is our objective, and this is how we're going to accomplish. And we're going to do something that is first rate, not a backdoor kind of half-hearted gesture. I think that would serve everybody. Sandra, it could be small, but with a sign and the adequate information, it would be meaningful. To me, this doesn't demonstrate anything other than kind of a little thought, little effort.
At the end of the day, the park commission, voted that they're okay with the idea of MG&E maybe looking at some educational, but certainly there's some other comments that were shared that you can take back to your group and, kind of take that under advisement and.
And you agree to go up there and paint it blue, right?
I could, I paint the whole thing blue.
John, when we talked, did you have some other technical, I don't know if the rest of you are interested, but I am, technical specs on this particular light that is going to go up there?
Oh, so Patrick had asked about the temperature of the light.
The K rating.
The K rating, and it's a 4,000 K light. So there's, ranges typically, the higher the temperature, the more whitish blue the light gives. And this, at a 4,000, puts it in the range of a white light.
And there's photometric beam patterns and all that stuff that go along with this light.
That were submitted to Sonia. There's a,
Yeah, we just don't have that.
a photometric plan.
which I would like
They
to
were
see.
submitted to whom?
The photometric plan was submitted to Sonia.
Chrysler.
Oh, okay, planning department.
Yes,
Yeah. So we don't
Along
have
with
that
this-
technical information.
along with the spec for the fixture.
So I think we're good.
Okay, and then I'll follow up with you, Scott and Sonia, as to if we can modify the language to incorporate what has been recommended.
Very good. John, thanks for your time.
Thanks,
You're
John.
welcome,
Thanks for
thank
coming
you.
in.
Very good, very good.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thanks.
Thanks, John.
All right, let's move on. Well, I've done the communications already.
Yep, we're into communications. Well, the first one was the Veterans Memorial Park update. We are going to have a meeting on Monday, January 13th, and I know there's some Park Commission members that are interested in attending. So we're, and actually, Peckman Memorial are going to be bringing some more site details, that kind of thing. So
What's the date on that meeting?
It's gonna be Monday, January 13th at 1 o'clock, and we'll meet right here in this room. I did include item number B, the 2020 park events. These are annual events that are scheduled already for 2020. Today was the first day that the general public was able to reserve some park shelters. So that just kind of gives you an idea of the annual calendar that we have at generally McKee, but there are a couple other.
Question on that.
Yes.
Yeah, I like this list a lot. I would even suggest that this list, you know, all these events up here, let me ask one little question. As I read through this, looks like these are all open to the public events, right?
I would,
They look like it to me. I would even suggest a list like this be posted on, let's say, the McKee Shelter, let's see, one of them is, two of them are McGaw. But it would let the public know by looking at these bulletin boards in the parks about, hey, there's an event coming up next week or next month or something. So I would like to see this put up on the shelters throughout the year, throughout the summer right here, the season. I like this list a lot. My question on the list right here as far as the scheduling, is it the idea, from what I read in the wording right here, that as long as a given event right here intends to come back on the same day, the same weekend, in the same place and everything, they automatically get it? And then if they have not spoken up by January 1st or 2nd or something, then their day, their spot is open to anybody else who wants it. Okay, that's the way it works. Then is there some kind of a deadline, like, I don't know, December 1st or December 31st or something, where the previous group that was there before has to speak up?
well, what I do is all of these people have tentative permits, because I reach out to all the annual events to see if they're, and a lot of them say, hey, we're planning on coming back next year, so we do a tentative a permit, but then once the fees are determined, then those fees are added to that permit. But these people all, you know, if someone came in today and was asking for McKee or McGaw for one of these dates,
Yep.
it's already
Right.
booked.
So you reach out to all of these groups and just say, are you coming back? You
Well,
can have it if you want it?
Yep.
Okay.
I do, and a lot of them will, you know, after their event, hey, you know, we want to get on the schedule for next year. And I say, you know,
they
as
tell you
long
right
as,
away,
Mhm.
Okay.
As long as you stay on the same day and the same weekend,
Mhm.
then you're allowed to do that.
Okay.
So that's that. I wanted to provide some, because I know Dave, you at one of our previous meetings was kind of talking about goals and objectives and those kinds of things. And I think that the Park and Open Space Plan really does provide a lot of that guidance or direction. And then certainly at the end of the 5 years, it allows us to do an assessment of how well we've done over the last 5 years. So I think you know, I was struggling with trying to figure out what our goal and what our plan is and how do we monitor it and how do we evaluate it. So that's kind of what I came up with.
If, one point on that, I think you maybe have gone past it. Do you know where this page is? I don't know where it is.
That is page 58.
Okay. I would suggest that you take that picture off of Beer Garden because that is going to set some tempers off.
No, well, it's really, it's the idea of
I know the idea of the proposal,
a sociable place.
It's just
That-
an example.
Yeah, just
puts-
because we're not
puts a
having it at McKee,
fire
we might
going
have it
again
at somewhere else.
Past problem.
And this is something that is due for update next year,
Yes.
is the way you describe it?
Yes.
Well, and what I just learned, because I know so little about all of the parks planning process, but looking at the comprehensive plan update that's going on now, that this
But the city's
document,
come.
yes, the city, for the entire city, this is one document that is part of that.
That's referenced, yeah,
So, and by reference, it's automatically
part of it.
part of it.
Yeah.
So there are other things that are listed too, but it was reassuring to see that because there are some nice ideas in here.
And it's kind of interesting, you go, after 5 years, when you do this, you look at some of the goals that we put in there, and we actually, you know, achieve some of them.
Did you actually do a real succinct summary of what was accomplished and what wasn't?
I have not, no.
Okay, well, maybe that might, you talk about plan monitoring updates and amendments, and so,
I could, sure.
not to go into the minutia, but just highlight the important things from a park director's point of view as to what has been accomplished, or
Sure,
what-
sure. You know, and I noticed, you know, one of them's a dog park, you know, sorts of, that kind of stuff. Certainly, certainly. Well, in each of, you know, there could be a little mini report on each of the goals and each of the action items and.
Well, I wouldn't want you to spend too much time on it. I think
No.
it would be, you could be in part of your annual report,
Sure.
or something like that.
Well, it's certainly part of our update of the next plan that, you know, what have we accomplished and those kinds of things. Sunnyside Park, just a little bit of information. We're continuing to work on a drinking fountain at Sunnyside.
I noticed that Jordan mentioned in here he's looking at hooking up to electric, to run an electric well pump there.
Mhm.
That seems like going backwards on the whole idea. I mean, there are 2 solar-powered lights at the gates into there, and there's no electric service into the park. When somebody or other brought it up, I think from the Dog Park Advocates group, of which I'm actually a member, to have a hand pump there, I thought that was great. That's like the county parks have.
Yeah.
To change this into an electric well pump means you gotta have a pump, you gotta have a switch, you turn it on, a tank fills with water, you get a drinking fountain, and then that means a whole lot of work, maintenance for the parks crew to come in and drain the thing
See,
before
what we-
winter
yeah,
and all of that stuff.
Yeah, but see, that's to the contrary of what we're finding.
What do you mean?
That the well pumps are harder to maintain. If you don't get a good sample, it's difficult to, you know, you gotta sit there, you know, it just, electricity really makes it more efficient to maintain it, and if you gotta flush it and all of those kinds of things.
Which way are you saying you're leaning? Electric pump or hand pump?
Electric pump.
Okay,
Electric.
you know, there are hand pumps in Lake Farms Park, and when I go there, you pump
And
the
Jordan-
handle a few times, you get water coming out. Looks like-
actually, Jordan's gonna be coming to the meeting in April, and he'll be able to, because he's done some diligence and he's contacted these people,
Okay.
and we've determined that, you know.
I like the idea of water in there. It's nice.
It just
But,
seems
yeah,
strange to me to like flip a switch, push a button, whatever, and run the well pump at 240 volts and 20 amps or something to get a drink of water for the person or for the dog and then shut it off and walk away. Because that's what it would be.
Jordan can
Okay.
help explain
Okay.
the justification behind that.
Okay.
So I wanted to update you on that. Chad will be coming in February, Chad and Austin, to kind of introduce themselves, but talk a little bit about what they do. I did include our annual work plan for the department in 2020. I did, the woods management is continuing at S. Johnson. So I provided a couple pictures of that. And then I actually,
Wait, back up a
I
little.
included the map, which identified Area 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you explain that, the colors, what those stand for?
Well, those are, they're identified as different stands, and actually in the plan, the stands are identified by a little bit of the trees that are
From a
found
landscape standpoint?
from a landscape, and actually, as we went through the process, the neighbors didn't want us to do any work in areas 2, 3, and 4. They were okay with us doing work in areas 1 and 5, so that's the areas that we're working on. And really, hopefully, they'll kind of provide a demonstration of what it in theory could look like.
The colors are meaningless. It's just blue is different than yellow, is different than red, is different than green. But, and then, I mean, it's the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, those are just
Same thing.
And then real succinctly, where was the strong reaction that, where the neighbors were? Was it areas?
right over, well, over near.
Oh, no, not just.
Yeah,
in
mostly,
there.
you know,
So we're
mostly
gonna-
neighborhoods.
the woodlands, that's kind of a buffer to the park,
yeah.
and they didn't want to see the density reduced, even though we were talking about invasive species.
Right.
Didn't seem to matter.
Can you back up a picture or so then?
That one?
Try another. Well, okay, that one's okay. So I know that there are 5 very large piles of logs and tree trunks in there, some of them, I mean, at least 6-inch diameter, up to more than 2-foot diameter. Are they being removed or going to be removed and taken somewhere else?
Yeah, typically what we'll do is we'll probably remove them. There are neighbors that have indicated that what they've done before in the past is they've dropped off logs and stuff to people that are interested in them.
Okay, just as a suggestion, if this would work out and if nobody's gonna scream liability, if you like offered wood piles, cut your own, split it, haul it away, oh, okay, I didn't think so, but you get free removal.
I'll actually go back to a comment, last time you were talking about wanting to have distinct paths.
Yeah,
In a lot of campus planning, they have experimented, this would go back 50 years, where they won't even put in the sidewalks. And they let the occupants, the students, create the desire lines. And then that's been helpful, because many times you come up with a formal plan that maybe somebody is attached to for various reasons, but that's not how people want to go. So the fact that you don't have distinguished paths, over time you will. The people who choose to go that way, you will create the path. It may not be first blush, but that might be better for you as neighbors to be, your own desires are gonna be put into place and not somebody else's idea.
well, that's a kind of a different situation. I've read those things too, where on like a college campus, they don't put the sidewalks in, and basically where the people have walked along and worn it down to bare dirt, they put a sidewalk there, because that's where the people wanted to walk. This is a situation where, the trails that were in there from when this was the McGough farm, the cattle paths or whatever driveways or such were in there, were turned into these trails that the people like to walk on the trails. I'm just explaining. And when people are walking on the trails in there, they can't see any houses, they don't see the cars, they can't hear anything, and they're just walking in a dense forest. Didn't matter, didn't care what is growing at the side, as long as there's a lot of stuff growing at the side. I don't want to, say invasive bad and everything else is good or whatever. It's just the idea of walking in a trail in a woods was what a lot of people wanted, and what I hear from people. This is, like that shows right there, this is a wide open area, so it won't be something where somebody's gonna walk from here, point A to point B, and wear a trail through there. It's wide open, people are gonna just wander. And the idea is you can be standing in one place, and you can see somebody hundreds of feet away, and that's not what people wanted.
I have a question.
Somebody wanted more density
Yeah.
and more privacy.
Seclusion, being out and surrounded by nature kind of
But
idea.
I have a question. The work in stands 1 and 5 is done.
What, no.
Okay.
No.
So everything else is going to remain full of invasives in the foreseeable future?
2, 3, and 4,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so that's just the status of where we are.
Right.
Okay, I mean, we have a difference of opinion of what is nature, does invasives, lots full of invasives, does that really nature, or is nature what we create for the species that are looking for a habitat that's been taken over by invasive species? But, so, what is S. Johnson?
Well, if you look at.
Number 5.
Yeah, if you look at the.
Is-
So S. Johnson is a woodlot that's adjacent to McGaw.
And that's area number 5?
Yep, that's area number 5.
Okay.
Yep. And then
Got
area
it.
number, I shared the pictures from area number
Yes.
1, which they're actually, they did some work in.
Yeah, I drove back there and saw,
And then here, the pictures that I'm showing you is
are
this-
there,
is
yeah.
that one.
Okay, thank
The
you.
work in Area 1 was done in the second week of November, 11th to 15th or something or other, I wrote it down somewhere. 11th to 15th of November, and now the work in Johnson has started up, was done in the week of the December 16 to 20, and then there was more work. They came back today and worked on it some more. This is in Area 5, December and today. So presumably
just
the
kinda
area
give you
in
a-
1 may be done for now,
Well, they-
as far as what
and it-
work is.
And
Going to
again,
be
they kind of do it at this time, and allows them to get to it.
Well, I noticed that, I think around Area 1, there were some markers indicating what was going on, and somebody at the university was doing a research study, and I think I would like to see that in your report, Scott.
That's a
The
different thing.
collaboration with other institutions, other entities, and things that are, show the full range of the activities of the park.
And Anna will be here in March, so that could be something that she could share with you.
That's her project, right?
So we good with S. Johnson? And then we did do some, doing some plats in some different parks to identify boundaries and those kinds of things. And once these plats are surveyed, then Jordan has been working to get the park boundary signs out there and that kind of.
Do you have a sample of, as to what the park boundary sign is?
Oh,
I can just.
I could get one to you, Dave.
A what?
No, I just,
The park, it's a green post, and, well, I don't know if it's,
has a
I
certain,
think it's about.
I don't know if it's landscape architect approved or anything like that.
No, it's, well, at least the one, there's a couple of them up in Wildwood, and those are just that metal U-shaped fence post. I
Well,
think
yeah, no,
it's about 4
what
feet
we'll do is I'll send you one.
Okay, maybe the one I'm thinking has been there all along from
Yeah.
a prior project.
Yeah. No, it's just basically a green post that has a park boundary, and I don't remember what the text is on each side, but it identifies where the
Yeah.
park boundary
It
is.
Okay.
says park boundary.
well,
Yeah.
On both
is
sides.
this,
No, not on both sides.
Just on one side.
I would hope it's something that's quite inexpensive, and
It's not.
also is something that isn't destroyed easily by nature
Yeah, it's the
or
metal
some
post.
kids.
Oh, yeah, it's basically like a street sign, like, Fish Hatchery Road, like, well,
Well,
it's a different shape and everything, but it's that kind of aluminum plate and then reflective white paint
I'll
on
send you
it.
a
and the
picture.
lettering and all that.
I would, since I was asked, I'm kidding, just caution you to enter into a program that's very simple and this is not the first park in the United States that has identified where the property line is. There's some really simple solutions out there that aren't costly and that aren't easily vandalized. You put too much up there, you're gonna have stickers on it, graffiti, all kinds of stuff. It can be real subtle. And one can learn to know that what that pole means is it's a property line.
Mhm, mhm. Well, I'll share what we've got, and then you can give me your thoughts on what you think.
I would like to know, let's see, we've got a survey here of Wildwood Park and another one for Dolly Conservancy.
Dolly?
Do you have the figures of what each of these two surveys?
$2,300 or so
2,300 each
per survey.
per survey? Okay. I know from finance reports that the McGaw Park survey was $6,000 by that different survey company.
78, I thought, if I recall.
Okay, more is worse. And then...
It was a different survey company.
Yeah, a different survey company, right. So like 2,300 for each of these two.
22 or 23. Yeah.
Okay. And also from the finance reports, I believe I read, something like $600 worth of signs. This is just for McGaw, and then something more $100 for more signs for McGaw Park only. So it was over $1,000 worth of these signs. So if you're asking what this is costing, that's what I've seen.
Well, then
Where is this money coming from?
That's operational expenses.
Okay.
I
Is it
think,
discretionary fund to spend it on anything?
I think it's an excellent idea to indicate
Where our boundaries
where
are.
needed, but I would caution you to do something that's really simple and not easily vandalized.
I'll show you what we've got now. I'll actually give you I can figure out a cost of each of them on how much it is. So.
In some ways, this is, well, you take a look at the Wildwood Park survey right there, and all the little notes that are on there, which I won't read, but you can read them yourself. And basically, the city is doing free surveying for all of the private lots all the way around these parks, which if you talk about, a light in McKee and how wasteful and stupid and Ridiculous it
Well,
is, I think this
Let's
is.
not re-debate that, though.
Yeah, this is, spending a lot of city money to survey private properties for free.
No, we're surveying park property.
No,
Not
I-
surveying
Yeah,
private
boundaries are shared, yeah.
What do
So
you
I wonder
got?
how much this is costing and where you're getting the money for all this.
And then what I did is I included a map just to kind of give you an idea of where Wildwood and Dolly Conservancy is. So then, Parks report. And then Anna and
That one,
Chad were, this one?
go ahead, you want-
Yep. I don't have anything to.
Okay, a little bit on this one right here, I did take a look, because this seemed awfully redundant, and I did compare this against the November. There are some changes in this January reporting on December versus our December meeting reporting on November. Actually, what here it says, what is it, fifth one down or something, forestry mowing, stand one in McGaw Park. This is a January report for what happened in December. That's not actually correct. That's repeated from the previous report because the forestry mowing, stand one in McGaw Park was done in November. So that was on the December meetings report. That should actually say the work in Johnson Park, which was done in December. And then there are a couple of things that were added onto this here report versus the previous report that we saw in December. And it also says dog park fountains, plural, still for 3 times in a row now.
Okay. Was there a question in there, or just an
I'm just
observation?
pointing out, it's not exactly what work has been done.
Okay.
Many things are
I would
redundant.
say in a positive way, it gives me an idea of the scope of what's being done. Whether it's 100% accurate is really
It's not a
Not-
daily report of what
not,
they.
not that important, but it shows you the complexity and
Volume.
the wide range of tasks that are being asked.
If there's any questions that
Yeah.
come up, it's an opportunity to ask them.
Well, and Jordan will be here, so he'll get to meet him. Well, and then here's actually a picture of the splash pad changing room floor, that they were able to get that poured.
So that is ready for the contractor to build on whenever they want to?
I don't quote me on that, but I think it's moving along.
The city poured the concrete, right? Or Parks Department?
No, I don't know exactly who did it.
What was the idea that the city was providing the cement pad and then the contractor who got that bid was going to
No,
put the building on it?
I don't recall, Patrick.
Okay.
I don't recall the
All right.
details. I just know that I thought it was pretty good, and
I think
then
it's,
middle of December, they're working on this stuff.
no, I think it's excellent
And
that
that's what
they,
I'm trying to provide you an update on.
that they went out and did it right away.
Yeah, they're working on it, and it's time and resources and weather. So I just wanted to share that they're after it.
Might even reopen it if it warms up.
No. It's hell on our skating rink, so. And then here's my report. The rec department and the forestry department, they've been off for the holidays.
I was gonna comment that Austin could have done the rec report. He's been handling it for I don't know how long the last.
I gave the rec
Okay.
department and the forestry department off in December,
Okay,
okay?
but I know he's been handling
Yeah, he's been
the rec
doing-
office by
he's been
himself
doing-
for a while.
He's been doing good, yeah.
I didn't do the arithmetic, but what does a average plot sell for in the cemetery?
Well, I did that, what is there, 25 plot, well, $14,295. So when you divide that, they're roughly 695 or
They
something.
really haven't changed much. then.
No, they haven't,
Okay.
they haven't. But it is a busy place,
It's pretty cheap.
yeah, inexpensive, and that's what I like.
Okay.
Then future agenda items, Terra Vesa, I did include in your packet. That's kind of the work that Phil Steen has done,
Is this
park
mine?
planning. So he'll be in to present this in February. So I wanted to kind of give you a
Okay.
little bit of a heads up on it.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I see the expanded drawing, it shows the playground as being something that would be maintained by the city of Fitchburg, whereas in the park, there's 3 or 4 of these other playgrounds that are being maintained by the homeowner. How did one decide who was gonna do which?
Well, that was, I would say that probably was a staff, kind of a staff decision.
But why would we want a little tot lot?
Why? Well, they're per the smart code, they need to have a playground every 1,000 feet.
No, they can have them, just have the homeowners take care of it.
Yeah, that's what's
No,
gonna.
well, down here, you're saying the homeowners,
No, this big park down here, that's gonna be the cities, and this is gonna be the cities.
but I thought we said we had a problem with getting too many small parks that
Yeah, so
burden us.
these smaller ones in here,
Right.
these are gonna be the homeowners association, so they're gonna take care of those.
Okay, but then within the one down below,
This one?
there's essentially a small lot right here. Why don't they take care of that?
Is that not considered big or small? I don't know how big.
That's like 5, that's about 5, well, it's this parcel is probably about 4 acres.
So that's not the, is that not, or is that is not the small that are difficult to,
No,
or causing
no,
problems?
Those are more up here, Susan.
Little tiny ones are
Yeah.
what you were referring to?
Like
We're
top
talking
lots or
about
something? Top lots.
difficulty maintaining them.
Well, we can certainly maintain them, but it may end up being that it's a better thing that the homeowners association
Oh, sure,
maintains
sure.
them.
No,
But if you
I was just trying to suggest maybe they should.
take care of all of it,
Well, take more, seriously, I mean,
well,
I think,
you know, and that's,
I've talked with people who have been involved with planning and zoning in other communities, and they had small developments, 20 acres, 10 acres, all came with a little park, and over time, their operating budget was really eaten up by all of these tiny little parks.
absolutely.
And I think if Fitchburg isn't smart about it, you're gonna end up in that same situation.
What made it inefficient?
Because there's tiny little,
Is it like traveling to each one or
no,
something?
well, yeah, traveling, just everything,
Time
right.
not mowing, just driving.
And this is really kind of one of the goals in the Park and Open Space Plan is to work with developers to see if there isn't arrangements that could be worked out that way. But certainly I think the Parks Department in this neighborhood park and this neighborhood park, that's, yeah.
We can talk
We
about
should
more of
take-
this in February.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, they'll come in February. And then also, as I mentioned, Wade is gonna be stopping in about the Nine Springs Golf Course hub study. So he'll be coming in February.
Just one clarification, does Terra Vesa have other phases to it? Or is this the
No,
entire?
this is the whole thing.
Okay.
This is the whole thing. But they'll have different phases of their development.
Different sections of constructing the
Yeah,
housing.
yeah,
But like immediately, as soon as it's open, which it is already, the
These are the. these
parks
are-
are city property.
Yes, these are the areas that are identified as parks, and then we're trying to, and they've been kind enough to put together the potential, the plans for each of those neighborhood parks.
Yeah, this mentioned something in there about, that this was being, designed in cooperation with the Terra
Yeah,
Vesa
Terra Vesa,
people?
they're providing this plan.
Okay. Why, are we gonna see, the Fahey Fields that is being designed between the Park Department and
Yeah, see,
Fahey's?
you will.
Wouldn't that be a future agenda item also?
It will be, but not for February, because Fahey Fields, they're not able to provide as much resources as Terra Vesa is, so I'm trying to find some additional, I'd like to do a park planning process and hire it, but I'm working with finance to try and get some dollars in order to do that.
Okay, but I want to emphasize that David's comments previously was that we should be seeing these things at 10% and so on, not just at 90 or 99%.
I agree.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
this is my effort in doing that.
Right, and that's good. And what I notice is these bicycle paths are extremely straight, not very imaginative. They're boring. I mean, it's like somebody took a little thing like this and went around and that was it. I would expect to see, if this is really a progressive plan, I would expect to see something that had a lot more character. And I could show you projects that were done 20 years ago that had more visual substance than this does.
I would kind of suggest and guess that
Well, and
the straight
these,
lines squeezed behind everything are because of a developer
And actually,
designing it.
these are in already.
No, I know, but I guess I'm,
Well,
you
got it.
have to express just a little bit of disappointment in just the thoughtfulness of what's being done.
Mhm.
Maybe in the field, because of contours, things will change.
Well,
but-
and certainly we've got to plow them and those kinds of things, so that factors in too.
Well, okay, this is just my
Yeah.
own personal
I understand what you're saying.
opinion. They're kind of boring,
Yeah.
and I don't see a tree. Well, I guess there's a stamp for a couple of trees, the existing, but are they not planting any new trees?
Kind of make a beeline to everywhere they want to go
Well, yeah,
instead of.
there's no land, well, do they have a landscape plan for?
Well, I would think you'd have something, the topographical aspects to the plan. I mean, this is as if it were on a sheet of marble.
Everything colored in this map that's in gray, I guess it is sort of like a light purple or something.
Be interesting to
I'll say
see
gray,
the
as-
contours of the land.
Yeah.
is the buildable, developable land, I presume, right? Because it's not shown, the color blue or gray or whatever, it doesn't show up in the key of, I mean, there's elementary school and everything between the blocks, there's gotta be houses. So it's just not noted in the key, but I think that again,
But though
I'm
the
guessing
gray-
the developer,
Are you talking about,
the whole big center section, all, yes,
well, this
all
is where
of
the
it.
homes are.
Yeah, sure.
That's
That's what
all.
I figure, it just doesn't denote it in the key.
Yeah.
That's why I figure, I'm guessing or speculating that the bike paths or such are squeezed in behind all of the sellable property.
No, I think in reality, this is just, it doesn't have the topography on here, and you don't really have a sense of the landscaping. To me, this is just like a little bit like a diagram versus it's like, it ought to be the first pass at developing something as a concept. I see somebody's name on the second one. Are they doing everything or just the city park? I mean, is that the firm that's doing all
They
of the
must be the
landscape
ones
work?
that are working with Terra Vesta to provide the documents.
But are they doing all of the landscaping? Do you know, Scott, or are they just,
All the landscaping in the development?
yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I just was asking for a draft plan of their park plan.
no, I mean, that's good, I appreciate your asking, and I think,
And when they come in and present, and we can, ask them questions and all those kinds of things.
Okay, so this will
Who's
be.
coming in February on this?
Phil Steen.
but I mean, is he bringing his professionals?
Well, he's a developer, he's not really their architect,
Uh,
or the landscaper. But
This will be an action item in February?
It'll be kind of the first, they're gonna present it, and then the park commission can provide comments and those kinds of things, and then they'll take those comments, and whether they're willing to, to do those. Like you say, this is,
I can see it's quite
This is something
preliminary, and they've used colors to just show things, so I think the more I look at it, when I see this brown area, it says open space stormwater management. well, that would be landscape with some kind of
Yeah,
grasses.
This is more like a land use kind of
Right, it's
idea,
a
but
diagram.
with some details. You know,
Yeah.
it's not a, you know, anything final or anything.
No, okay, so I understand. I mean, obviously, they're not gonna build off of this.
What's that?
They're not gonna build off of this, they're not gonna construct
No,
it.
right, you gotta do construction documents and all that kind of stuff.
Do we have requirements in the city of Fitchburg for parking lots, the landscaping and parking lots?
That would be some, I don't know, Dave.
Okay, if you go to some sophisticated communities, they're interested in the heat island effect and the impervious system, and they require parking lots to be shaded. We were talking about McKee Farms Park and the demonstration. That parking lot there is something that is very, very simple. And if you were in a more sophisticated community, there would be a lot more landscaping around that. And there would be an earnest effort to get tree cover over the impervious surfaces.
Right, right.
And, you know, I think it's good that Fitchburg develops standards, but I would expect them to be of the same character as the city hall and the senior center and the library. Those are sophisticated developments. They're thorough. McKee Farms Park is not.
It's because it was done in-house.
Well, it was with a limited budget and all these other kinds of things. And it's not that there aren't good ideas there, but it's just,
There was a lot of changes.
Maybe
Right.
MG&E will put trees around the parking lot for us as a demonstration project.
Well, I'm
Probably
starting
not,
to
but I
put some
think it
trees.
needs more trees.
no.
Anyway,
Anywho,
let's move on.
Yes, please, sorry.
New business?
I just had the one question, Scott, that's sorry to bring up quickly about the Vernwood Park and the
Yes.
bird spikes. If that's just concerned residents with swallows nesting in the gazebo and kind of making the picnic space unusable, if that's, if you can look into it with Anna when she gets back, okay,
Yep, yep,
thank you.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Any other new business? Okay, announcements.
I would
Oh,
like
go
to ask a question. I'm sorry. This is really brief. Scott, when I ask you, does the park have sufficient resources, funding for staff and for maintenance? I would like to have some serious metric as to what other parks or what other systems or what other communities and what level of funding there is. Because I have the suspicion that not adequate funding exists for the parks. And it's one thing for you to say, I've seen requests that you've made for staffing and for other things that have been denied, and it seems to me that we're kind of on a train that maybe is running out of steam, and that you're being asked with limited resources to keep spreading it thinner and thinner. And I think there's some point at which, and it's a common problem. It's not just Fitchburg, it's many, many cities. And it does a disservice to the resident if we don't adequately maintain what we have. We can't just keep adding on and then building another fire station and staffing it with 4 more people. Seems like there are other departments that have gotten staffing requests approved and the Parks Department hasn't. And I'd like to help you, or I'd like the commission to help you to try to have the metric, have some comparison that really says, it's not that, oh, well, we're deficient by 10%. It's just a general feeling. And I think you could do it simply by looking at your budgets and how many square feet of park you've maintained in the past with that, and are we going in the right direction?
Mhm. Well, and there certainly is national standards, and there's, you know, neighboring communities that have park acreage and number of staff, and it's not always comparing apples to apples, but, you know, certainly a comparison to the number of staff that we had when I first started, which is about probably the same as it is now, and then the additional acreage, I'm all in for any kind of strategy to try and, tell the story.
I think we have to advocate. I mean, we can't just sit here and say, oh, everything is fine, you know? No, we should make sure that our community is adequately funded. The parks are extremely important. If there's anything that came through with the survey that was just done on the planning is, people like the parks, they use the parks, they're important. That's part of why you live in a community. It's what
Absolutely.
makes a community.
Absolutely.
And to just, just to take money from this area and put it in some other area of the city, I just think that, we have an obligation to make sure that we have an adequate level of funding.
Yeah.
And that includes deferred maintenance. And I'm telling you, I've had lots of experience with deferred maintenance. It doesn't show up, but it's there. And I think we need to seriously be advocates for appropriate funding.
Well, and I, if you're willing to help me put that information together, certainly when I put together the new, our park proposal for budgets and
Right.
things like that, I'd be very interested in, because you're right, David, it's not resonating, and,
Well, we have to tell the council members what, what the situation is. And
Well,
it's not,
How do we compare to similar
and
communities?
I can certainly, we can certainly,
We can find out,
Objectively.
and also the comment you made just now, I mean, when you say when you started here, what year was that?
2006?
And the staffing is the same, so
Well, I'm
pretty
hoping
close.
it's the same, but maybe less.
maybe a little less. So,
And, like I say,
and the community's growing, and, just looking at that 5-year park and open space plan that was referenced in today's agenda, that's looking to the future, and we're barely hanging on to the present. And there are big ideas in there for the future, and it just feels like we're gonna have to really make our case.
right, and any help you could give me, that'd be fantastic. And just in case of calling the elders, or, coming to the council meeting, coming to finance and say, hey, time out.
Yeah.
well,
look at-
I would like you to think of us as a resource, and
Yeah.
I think that we're here volunteering our time because we care about the parks, and we're thinking about the future. We're
I
not just
appreciate it,
thinking
yeah.
about the present.
No.
1978,
What's that?
Jim Kristoff was the Parks Department.
But, I've got a host report that lists all the acres, and, within the last couple of years, we've gotten like 10 new parks, dog park, and splash pad, and, all these other things. And that's appreciated.
Just have it being
I'll
like
get some information
get
put
it
together.
together, and so
And
we
Sarah, I
can
know Sarah
move
will
with
be an
it.
advocate for us.
Yes, I completely agree that I wish the parks had more support, because I love the parks, and I think it's fantastic that they're used, and they are a key element of Fitchburg, without a doubt,
Well, and as David meant, that's fed back in the comp plan, so that's kind of our ammunition that,
Yeah.
hey, this is what the community is saying. Excellent, thank you.
Okay, announcements. The next two Park Commission meetings will be February 6th and March 5th.
Yes,
Let Scott know if you can attend.
please.
We would need a motion to adjourn.
I so moved that the meeting be adjourned.
Okay, Dave made the motion, second by...
I'll second.
Okay, second. All those in favor of adjournment, see if it's anyway.
I-
8:54, aye.
Now, what happened to our goal that I guess we did get done.